Hi, and welcome to my 7th talk in a series based on my book, Second Class Citizens, and issues of disability, social policy, and austerity. We spoke in the last 2 talks about how welfare policies since the 1970s have been increasingly predicated on 3 flawed assumptions. Neoliberalism, which is basically that the government should step back from public services and investment and instead let markets have more freedom. Welfare dependency, which is the belief that people are poor primarily because of poor life choices and not because of structural factors. And malingering, which is an extension of the welfare dependency myth into chronic illness, and holds that most people who say they are too sick to work are not, in fact, too sick to work. Today we are going to look at malingering. In the previous 2 talks, we looked at neoliberalism and welfare dependency. This understanding of malingering underpins both of our working age disability benefits. It was influentially championed by Gordon Waddell and Mansell Aylward, key advisors to the DWP under both Labour and Conservative governments, and associated with the American insurance company Unum Provident. Their seminal work, The Scientific and Conceptual Basis of Incapacity Benefits, essentially argues that some 75% of people in receipt of sickness benefits were not genuinely too sick to work. Rather, they had common health problems with a limited or inconsistent pathological basis for incapacity. The idea is that because most people deal with most common health problems themselves most of the time without seeking healthcare, whilst many ill people modify some parts of their life but still go to work, therefore the 75% of people that they deemed to have merely common health problems aren't actually incapable of work. Instead, they've gone down a route of falsely believing themselves to be incapable of work because their families, doctors, and even benefit assessors have told them so. If only someone would tell them that they were fit for work, they'd magically get better and return to work. Because it is believed that most people with disabling chronic illness actually just have false beliefs about their capacity, benefit assessments are predicated on the assumption that what sick and disabled people say about themselves and their abilities cannot be trusted. The whole approach is about challenging what sick and disabled people say and finding reasons to disprove them. If someone says they watch TV, this is taken as evidence that they can remain seated at a workplace and concentrate for the length of a TV programme. If they are seen taking a water bottle from their handbag, this is taken as evidence of the physical ability to bend, reach, hold, and lift. No attempt is made to consider how watching TV differs from engagement in paid work, or the difference between a one-off activity and repeated activity. The result is that both employment and support allowance and personal independence payment regularly deny benefits to people who are disabled through chronic physical or mental illness. The same person, without any change in condition, can receive wildly different assessments depending on the extent to which any given assessor believes their self-report. And the whole ethos of the benefit system is predicated on an assumption that sick and disabled people cannot be trusted. Their reports of their own symptoms and difficulties are to be treated as exaggerated and subjective, of less importance than the informal observations of a nurse or paramedic who meets the person only once in their life. The result is a system that denies support to many people in genuine need, and turns out seemingly random results that give sick and disabled people no confidence that they will have the income they need for more than a year at a time. In reality, the DWP has multiple lines of evidence confirming that people on sickness benefits, as well as those refused access to such benefits, are too sick to work. Most recent is its February 2020 report on the work aspirations of sickness benefit recipients. The researchers reported that individuals' daily lives were often shaped by the severity and impact of their health conditions, with the vast majority reporting some difficulties with performing usual activities such as housework, family activities, or leisure activities. Only 20% thought they might be able to work at some point in the future, and even then most only expected to be able to work part-time. Then there's people who are told they aren't fit for work but are fit for the nebulous concept of work-related activity. Only 9% of these people get work within 12 to 18 months, whilst 10% of people not fit for work-related activity get work in that time. And this is despite the work-related activity group including people expected to be fully able to work within that time frame. In a 3-year study on people believed to be likely to be able to work in 12 to 18 months' time, most participants said that they were put under too much pressure to work. A third of them moved into the support group during that time, meaning that their previous assessment that said they would recover was wrong to say so. One of these 12 to 18-month recovery people was a gentleman who had left school at age 13 due to epilepsy and had never been able to work or gain qualifications. Another person misassessed by the benefit system was Colin, who had been ill for 6 years when he was told he was likely to improve in 3 months, and he is still ill some 8 years later. And then there is Ken, who has a sleep cycle disorder, which means that his sleep pattern is unpredictable more than a few days ahead, and he cannot either sleep when his body wants to be awake, nor stay awake when his body wants to be asleep. He doesn't qualify for the high rate of sickness benefits, which means he is left in destitution and required to engage in work-related activity, despite no prospects of improvement, and severe harm caused by trying to work or do work-related activity when his body wants to be asleep. Going back to the 12 to 18 months group, the researchers reported that some 79% of participants thought they'd get work within a year. Yet in that time period, some of these people actually ended up ill enough to get the support group of ESA, and barely any got work, despite the study period continuing 1.5 to 2 years past the government's expected recovery date for the participants. The DWP should have been well aware of the difficulties these people experience in moving towards work. After all, one of their findings from the 2-year work programme was that sick and disabled people who had been through it were actually further away from, not closer to, work at the end. The DWP had expected them to be closer to work as a result of the support they had ostensibly received and an improved health based on the prognosis given by the benefit assessor. Yet instead, people report that the conditionality regime actually made their health worse. This is what happened to James when he was reassessed and told he was now fit for work-related activity. His depression and other conditions got worse as he tried to comply with the requirements placed on him, until eventually he became ill enough to qualify for benefits without conditionality again. He should never have been required to prove his illness in this way in the first place. The DWP then sent some of these ex-work programme people to the Working Well programme. Despite the failure of the work programme, the DWP expected Working Well to get 20% of its participants into work within 2 years. In reality, only 5% entered work, which was the same rate as non-participants, and only 6 out of 2,600 people sustained work past a year. Another DWP study offered physiotherapy for back pain, in the belief that this was a major problem among sickness benefit recipients, and that if addressed it would result in a lot of people being able to return to work. In practice, the DWP discovered that relatively few people qualified for the physiotherapy, because their issues were either different or more severe than the physio could address. This counteracts Waddell and Aylward's claim that some 75% of people on sickness benefits just have common health problems which can be treated or overcome by willpower. The reality is that people on sickness benefits have a diverse range of illnesses and disabilities at severity levels that cannot be deemed common. Even worse was David Cameron's hypothesis that certain conditions, like obesity and drug addiction, are eminently treatable. A trial on treating obesity failed when it couldn't find enough participants. After all, very few people on ESA are there primarily, let alone solely, because of obesity. A trial on drug addiction reported that this is not, in fact, a condition that's readily amenable to treatment, and that pressurising such people to return to work as fast as possible actually slowed down the movement towards work. Then there's the people who are told they are fit for work. The DWP's own research said that these people actually need major adjustments if they're to be able to work, including part-time hours, flexible hours, and working from home. These aren't exactly typical open labour market jobs. The hypothesis of Mansell and Aylward is that all that these people needed was for a suitable authority to tell them that they were fit for work. After all, if their problem is that they've wrongly believed people who told them that they can't work, then the solution is to tell them that they can. Yet people who are found fit for work enter work at only a fraction of the rate of typical job seekers. Many claim job seekers allowance for a while but can't sustain it. Others end up with no work and no benefits either. As many as 60% used to go to appeal, with high proportions winning, before the DWP introduced an additional bureaucratic step, with the result that appeal volumes dropped off a cliff. Research in the early 2000s found that even then, under the less strict incapacity benefit assessment, people who were found fit for work were still those who could not compete effectively in the labour market, yet did not qualify for incapacity benefit, and consequently were abandoned either to struggle on job seekers allowance or to depend on family for support. Contrary to Mansell and Aylward's supposition, being told they are fit for work does not make a sick or disabled person fit for work. As for who does get work after being on sickness benefits, it's the people whose health improved. A repeated finding of DWP research is that what matters in getting sick people into work isn't the paucity of the benefits they receive, the stringency of the conditions, or the quality of the help. It's whether or not a person's health improved. And when a person's health does improve, then, far from playing the sick role as the DWP seem to think, these people voluntarily resign their sickness benefit even before they've secured a return to work. This is not a group of people who are playing the sick role out of preference. Overall, the evidence is very clear that people who put in a claim for sickness benefits have illness or disability that limits their capacity for work to substantially below that of standard job seekers. This is the case whether or not they are found fit for work or for work-related activity. Those who do return to work are the ones who experience an improvement in health and voluntarily resigned their benefits and returned to work or job seeking. In contrast, when people are told they're fit for work without an improvement in health, the majority don't get work, and many are left without any income, forced to appeal or reapply later, having to sign up for job seeker allowance despite not being truly fit for work, or becoming dependent upon family. Many who do sign up for job seekers allowance aren't able to sustain this, and therefore again they end up either not claiming benefits, making a repeat claim for sickness benefits, or becoming dependent on family. People who are assessed as unfit for work have substantial health barriers and are not close to work. It is inappropriate to assess these people as fit for work or fit for work-related activity and consign them to destitution benefits under the threat of sanctions and with requirements to engage in work search or work-related activity that is not appropriate for what their health can sustain. The DWP really needs to learn that sickness and disability are major features in the UK working age population, and that we're not just people who are playing the sick role because we want to or because we've been told falsely that we can't work. We have genuine incapacitating illness or disability, and without support from the government, we will become dependent upon family or left in destitution. The government says that it doesn't want to abandon people to benefits, but the real abandonment is refusing to let people access benefits or making benefits so low that anyone in receipt of them is in destitution. The government is abandoning its sick and disabled citizens because it refuses to support them with enough income and stable income for them not just to manage the basic living costs, but also to participate in society and contribute in the way that they best can according to their health needs. Work is not the only way that people contribute to society, but when sick and disabled people are rendered destitute by their government, they can't contribute in any of the ways that they would be able to do if they had an adequate income. We are rendered second-class citizens by this government and by the public support and belief in the ideas of malingering and welfare dependency, and it's vital that the truth starts to get out into the public so that they will hold the government to account and ensure that the social security system is fit for purpose.